And you probably had no idea that this happened because the event wasn't televised. Press coverage was scarce. But this weekend, 6 of the GOP presidential candidates participated in a so-called Thanksgiving Family Forum in Iowa. Now, this event was sponsored by the Family Leader and National Organization for Marriage, 2 conservative Christian organizations. And the focus here was, you guessed it, social policy and values. Now, in what some described as a soul-bearing event, the candidates told personal stories of difficult moments in their lives, their regrets, and their dedication to God. That sounds nice, sounds very personal. But then when you really look at some of their responses, the picture becomes a little more scary. The candidates advocated for Judeo-Christian values pervading our laws, for the federal government to take power out of the hands of the state in legislating moral issues, think gay marriage and abortion, and for Congress to take away the judiciary's power to review moral laws. So all in all, makes you wonder, as William Soughton at Slate did, if these candidates who so often decry the influence of Islam or the fake creeping Sharia law, if they actually wouldn't mind a theocracy, as long as it was Christian. Joining me to discuss this is David Silverman, president of American Atheists. David, thanks for coming back on the show. Now, I just want to start with the way that this, event went down. It wasn't televised. It was streamed online. At the end of the day, only 17,000 people actually watched it. Do you feel like this is a little more important, that more people should see what these candidates are actually saying in this regard?
Well, I think the problem that we're seeing when we're looking at the Republican Party is what the American atheists have been saying for a long time. The Republican Party is now the party of a Christian theocracy, and it is not it's not going overboard to say such a thing. The candidates in the Republican Party right now are advocating theocracy, and it's a very scary thing. And what they're doing, they don't have answers for the real problems that we have in this country. They don't have the answers for the war or the economy or the jobs or the crumbling infrastructure. So they are inventing a problem, and they're assigning it to religious minorities, and then they're demonizing those religious minorities so that they can coalesce their base around support, around a fake problem. And they're cloaking the whole thing in patriotism. And it's very scary to watch. It's very predictable. We've been seeing this happen, and we've been raising the red flag. And I'm very happy that the press is picking up on this. And yeah, it's very scary that this wasn't televised. But I've been looking at the internet coverage on this for the past day, and it's really picking up. I'm glad that people are starting to see the Christian right, the Christian right's influence on the Republican Party as real. And I would just like to say that I used to be a Republican. I am all about small government. I'm all about gun rights. I support the troops. I support a strong military. But I cannot vote for a Republican because they are theocrats. And they think I'm immoral just because I think atheists should have a fair seat at the table. And that's wrong, and that's un-American on their part, and it's very, very scary from our point of view.
All right, well, let me make one statement, too, in regards to what you said. There was one candidate that actually stood out at this forum in Iowa this weekend and sounded like the sane one that reminded everybody about personal liberty and that you shouldn't impose your beliefs on other people, and that was Ron Paul. But aside from him, everyone else there sounded the same way. And, people might think that we're just being mean here or something, but let me play a clip from something that Rick Santorum said that just might go along with this theocracy argument that you're making. Let's take a listen.
Unlike Islam, where the higher law and the civil law are the same, in our case, we have civil laws, but our civil laws have to comport with the higher law. Our civil laws have to, and that's why the issue of abortion, as long as abortion is legal, at least according to the Supreme Court, legal in this country, we will never have rest because that law does not comport with God's law.
So he wants God's law to rule. Now, I'm just wondering, as an atheist, how do you fight these types of statements and remind people that because you're an atheist doesn't mean that you're necessarily immoral? Because it sounds like, from the Republican perspective, that unless you are someone of faith, then you have no morals.
Right, and Mr. Santorum forgot to say that it was his interpretation of God's law that really counts. It's not the other people's interpretation of God's law that really counts. It's not about the economy, and it's not about the jobs or the war. It's about abortion or gay marriage, and it's about Islam. And they're going to come and take over this country and make it their country. And it's about the secularists, the atheists, who are going to take over this country and make it their country. I'm sorry, it's not an extremist point of view to say this. It sounds a lot like early Hitler. It does. And it's very, very scary when people will follow this kind of rhetoric, when people will not see that these people, the Senator Mr. Santorum and Bachmann and Romney and Gingrich, are using this kind of mentality, using their religious beliefs and using this pumped up fake attack on Christianity to cloak themselves and protect themselves from their complete inability to answer the country's real problems of the economy, of the jobs, of the infrastructure, of the terrible education system that we have. This is our problem as citizens. We must not elect the people who can't actually solve problems, who actually distract, who actually, you know, show something shiny over here so that we don't look at the real problems. And I'm calling out all Christians out there. Don't just vote for somebody because they're bigoted in your favor. Bigotry in favor of Christianity isn't good, and it's not any better than any other kind of bigotry. America is a melting pot. We are a broad country, and no matter how religious you are and no matter how Christian you are, in a Christian theocracy, you'll never be Christian enough. There's always going to be somebody there with another version of Christianity that's more Christian than you, and you're going to lose the freedom to make the choice because you didn't defend the separation of church and state when you had the chance.
But something that we hear a lot is, you know, certain candidates having to prove that they're more anti-abortion than the other candidate, and they're always having to one-up each other. And I want to play one last clip here, too. I'm going to skip the Perry clip. One last clip from Santorum that I think brings up a good point that you did. Just take a listen.
That is not our founders' vision. That is, as Newt suggests, you know, license, libertiness, and it's a corruption of liberty. It's not an understanding of liberty. Our founders understood liberty is, you know, not what you want to do, but what you ought to do.
So just kind of interesting. I wonder how Republicans would apply that to, you know, certain tax policies, or when you start looking at the economy, and it's not just about the free market and what you want to do, but it's what you ought to do, which is maybe help those that are in need in this country.
And who's going to determine what you ought to do? Well, they're going to determine what you ought to do. And then they cloak the whole thing in Christianity. And when you look in Christianity, there's no notion of freedom of religion in Christianity. There's no notion of democracy or separation of powers or checks and balances in Christianity. There's not even a vote in Christianity anywhere. There's no liberty in Christianity. That's why when they come out with these statements like America was founded in a Christian values, I challenge them. Okay, name the Christian values that you're talking about and show me where they're in American law. Show me where your assertion that this is a Judeo-Christian nation actually manifests itself in our law. And by the way, Judeo-Christian is a fake word anyways, but let's find out what they mean. And when you take it to the next level, exactly what? Name one Judeo-Christian value that's part of American law. They can't, because it's not true. They know it. They're lying. They're trying to distract your attention from the fact that they have no solutions to this country's real problems. And this country's real problems have nothing to do with abortion or gay marriage. They're all about the economy, the jobs, our infrastructure, and quite frankly, this horrible division that we have, this horrible polarization that we have in our society,
yeah. David, I got to wrap it up, unfortunately, because we're out of time. But I want to thank you for joining us tonight. And you know, there's a lot to be said about morality versus telling people they have to have values that align with a certain religion. And I think more people need to know the candidates are saying this. Thanks so much.
Thank you.